Hello, everybody, and welcome to this live on my Substack, on the Jessica Denson Substack. I don't do these too often, but today has been one of those days where
Yes, it has.
when it rains, it pours. I was doing a live with Representative Al Green over on YouTube because he just filed HRES 1486 today. And I got news during that live that Major Jason Watson has now officially been charged by Air Force JAG for 3 violations of the UCMJ. So I am joined right now. I messaged Kira right away. I said, Kira, would you hop on with me on Substack? Like, I can only handle one YouTube live per night. Maybe we need to change platforms over here. And she said yes. So I'm very grateful to have her here with me tonight. She, of course, is an Air Force veteran herself. She was there with us at the Capitol on July 1st when Major Watson made history with us. I'm going to be honest with you all. I have just it's been nonstop today. So I'm literally
Oh,
going
yeah.
to just kind of read to you and digest this during this live right in front of you right now. So we can do that together. Um, Kira, how are you feeling?
When you say it's been a crazy day, man, it has been
Yeah.
a crazy day. We woke up to early in the morning. Representative Green went ahead and put his articles of impeachment in, this time focusing on the paramilitary forces that are affecting our cities and our nation and terrorizing our people, ICE. And wow, to learn that they are actually going through with uh, pursuing charges against somebody who had the guts just to stand up and say, you know what? It's actually a real big problem that we have somebody that is deploying,
Yeah.
mass forces against the American people. That guy shouldn't stay in office is really stunning.
Yeah, it is wild, and I want to predicate what we're going to do tonight with the fact that I don't endorse the assertion of any of these allegations. I think Jason has spoken pretty candidly about accepting the consequences and understanding that his actions may be in violation of the UCMJ. I look, I happen to think that your oath to defend the Constitution and the oath that he specifically took as a member of the armed services was his guiding principle. And I really look forward and hope that those arguments are made for him. But I'm going to go through these charging documents. Like I said, I'm going to go through them with you live just as we speak. The first article that Jason has been charged with is Article 88. Now, Article 88 is the article of the Uniform Code of Military Justice that makes it a crime for commissioned military officers to use quote unquote contemptuous words against specific high ranking civilian leaders, including the president, vice president, Congress, secretary of defense, secretary of any military department. I will note that this article of the UCMJ has only been charged and prosecuted once in history. So this is extremely successfully prosecuted. It's extremely rare, extremely rare. Um, I'm going to pull up, and again, like I said, I'm doing this live with you. I'm reading from a document that is a photograph of a charging document. So it's a little bit fuzzy for me, but I'm going to do my best. Charge 1, violation of UCMJ Article 88. Specification 1, in that Major Jason P. Watson, U.S. Air Force, while a commissioned officer on active duty, did at a worldwide location on or about the 6th of June 2025 wrongfully caused to be published in a Defenders of Our Republic Substack, right here on this platform on Defenders of Our Republic, which he was running prior to July 1st, did cause to be published certain contemptuous words against the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, to wit, quote, President Trump represents much of the worst of humankind. Quote, he is a greedy, unintelligent, narcissistic, pathological liar, traitor, and coward, and quote, President Trump literally sells access to the White House, unquote, or words to that effect. Again, I am just reading from these documents. I am not verifying any of the allegations made in them. Specification number 2, in that Major Jason P. Watson, U.S. Air Force, while a commissioned officer on active duty did at or near the U.S. Capitol, Washington, D.C., on or about 1 July 2026, wrongfully use orally and publicly certain contemptuous words against the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, to wit, quote, the President of the United States sponsors violence against the American people, unquote, declaring that the president conducted illegal military operations in Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran, which resulted in the quote deaths of 13 service members and injuries of hundreds more, and demanding that the president be quote impeached, convicted, and removed, or words to that effect. Specification 3. In that, Major Jason P. Watson, U.S. Air Force, while a commissioned officer on active duty, did within the continental U.S. on or about 17th of August 2026 wrongfully use orally and publicly certain contemptuous words against the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, to wit, referring to the president as, getting to the next photo I have here, as having failed us, or quote as a failure as president, and as quote engaged in rampant corruption and is killing Americans, unquote, or words to that effect. And it sounds, Kira, like in that last one they're referring to the CNN interview that he did last week with
It
Aaron
does
Burnett.
indeed. And let me just say how pleased I am that all of those words are in the official charging documents and will have to be read out in court and into the public record many, many, many times.
Yeah,
That, for all of everything that Major Watson has done up to this point has been in service of his oath, as you say. And the the plain speaking of what is e eminently obvious to the public, to the American public, to the public in the world, to the newspapers and the media who continuously print this information about the corruption and about the, a anti-American activities of this president. Um, Honestly, I great to have it in writing and in a court of
yeah,
law, and yeah, let's litigate. I'd love to see it.
yeah, absolutely. I talked about earlier, I'm going to read the other two for everybody, but I talked about I guess last Friday on my show about how he really forced their hand, because if the government, Donald Trump would like nothing more than a case like this to go away, right? But he really forced their hand by going on CNN, because they could not continue to just hold these charges over his head, or even let him remain free without in some way taking action in accord with the UCMJ to signal, that they are uniformly applying it
Yeah,
to
this
members of
is
the military. And
100%. Yep.
yeah, and yet this is the very thing that will make us talk about Major Watson and make us talk about the demands and the statements that he made.
Mhm. Yeah, being unafraid to bring that fight is a key part of this. And you can go every time the administration ends up with somebody who's willing to fight, they do not do well. If you look back to the Broadview case, right? What ended up being discovered was that there was huge malfeasance by the government, just people making things up and and vouching, right? And the grant at this point now, the precedent there is such that when additional cases come before courts, they no longer presume that the government is acting in good faith. They're asking for grand jury documents because they know that the cases brought by the government against dissenters, against people that oppose this regime and are unafraid to say so, are often spurious and poorly put together. It's no secret that there's not the best people in this administration. They're not real good at their jobs. And I think, yeah, forcing the issue is the way to make sure that this doesn't leave the spotlight and that they're not able to just slide on by and wait till, wait till they secure even more power.
So, guess what else has just been entered into the official record, Kira?
Do tell.
Lights on with Jessica Denson as part of the official charging documents. We're about to get to Article 92. This is the second
Is
one that
it?
yes, this is the second one that he's been charged with, and Article 92 of the UCMJ covers the failure to obey any lawful general order or regulation, other lawful orders, or the performance duties in a derelict manner. Okay, so here are their claims for Article 92. Specification number 1. In that Major Jason P. Watson, United States Air Force, while on active duty, did within or near the continental U.S. on or about the 24th of June, 2026, violate a lawful general regulation, which was his duty to obey, to wit, Department of Defense Directive 1344, political activities by members of the armed forces, paragraphs 4, 1, 2, and 6, dated 19th of February 2008, by wrongfully participating in a pre recorded online video program, to wit, an interview with reporter Jessica Denson on the program Lights On, as an advocate in favor of the partisan political cause of impeaching, convicting, and removing President Donald J. Trump and Vice President
Oh,
J.D. Vance.
let me pause that right there and talk about the partisanship because I feel like that, as you
Yeah.
say, is a claim that cannot be proven, right? The
Yes,
the Constitution is not partisan. The
I know.
Constitution has a lot to say about the kind of person that can fulfill the offices of this nation, and they do not include anybody that is committing high crimes and misdemeanors, bribery, or treason. You can make a case, in my opinion, that the person currently in charge can actually be disqualified under all three. So the partisanship, I think they're really going to have an issue with here because this is not about blue or red or whatever anything. It is
Yeah.
simply about constitutional consequences.
Yeah, I really take issue with that classification of him as partisan as well, and he made it clear both on my show and when he was with us on July 1st that he is not a Democrat. He was not standing beside Representative Green because he shares, let alone knows what his policy positions are. He was there strictly because of Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution, which he has sworn an oath to uphold, as has every member of Congress. I take total issue with the characterization of anything that we did as partisan.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no, I mean, citizens impeachment itself, impeachment in the name, that is
Yeah,
nonpartisan. It does
yeah,
not matter what party you identify with. It is easy at this point in time to recognize that this administration, this president, is failing to uphold his oath to the Constitution. At one point, he was on NBC and just said it. I don't know if I need to uphold the Constitution. He's not sure if that's part of the job description. And I do not regret to inform him that it is.
yeah. Of course, he could care less about upholding his constitutional duties. And by the way, anybody who knows me knows that I'm probably one of the people out here on the so-called pro-democracy left, whatever you want to call it, progressive side that gives the most amount of hell to Democrats
Oh,
because
yeah.
I have as much problem with them failing to uphold their constitutional duty as the actual people violating the Constitution right now. So,
They are sitting
uh,
on their hands. Yeah.
yeah, a hundred
It's
percent.
it is a problem.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. So I'm going to keep reading from Article 92, charging document, charge sheet. Specification 2. In that, Major Jason P. Watson, U.S. Air Force, while on active duty, did at or near the Washington District of Columbia on or about 1 July violate a lawful regulation, which was his duty to obey, to wit, Department of Defense Directive 1344, by wrongfully speaking before a partisan political gathering, to wit, at a Capitol Hill press conference organized to promote the partisan political cause of impeaching,
Mhm.
convicting, and removing President Donald J. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. Specification 3. In the Major Jason P. Watson, U.S. Air Force, while on active duty, did at or near the U.S. Capitol on or about 1 July violate a lawful general regulation, which was duty to obey, to wit, Department of Air Force instruction, dress, and personal appearance of the Department of the Air Force personnel, by wrongfully wearing his Air Force service dress uniform while furthering political activities, to wit, delivering a public speech and participating in a public demonstration advocating the impeachment, conviction, and removal of the President and Vice President of the United States. Specification 4.
Ooh.
And that Major Jason P. Watson, U.S. Air Force, while on active duty, having knowledge of a lawful written order issued by his unit commander, to wit, an approved DAF Form 9088, leave request authorization which limited his approved leave to sublimity Oregon, an order which it was his duty to obey, did at or near Washington, D.C. on or about 29th of June, failed to obey the same by wrongfully departing the authorized leave and location and traveling to and remaining in Washington, D.C. without authorization. Specification 5, in that Major Jason B. Watson, U.S. Air Force, while on active duty, having knowledge of a lawful order issued by Major Bethany Evans, U.S. Air Force, his unit commander, to report for and perform his assigned duties at Joint Air Force Bowling, Washington, D.C., on or about the 18th of August, while wearing physical training gear, PTG, an order which it was his duty to obey, did at or near Joint Base Anacostia Bowling, on or about the 18th of August, failed to obey the same by wrongfully refusing to wear his PTG uniform. So I talked about this last one, Kara, last week, because this was apparently, a lot of us expected that night of the Aaron Burnett interview for him just to be swept up and taken that night. And he wasn't. He informed
Yeah.
his commanding officers of his whereabouts, that he intended to come to work the next day, but he came the next day and refused to wear his uniform. And that apparently was the trigger that brought him into detention. Granted, the appearance on CNN and the alleged violations of his gag order and UCMJ were what were the motivating cause, not just the uniform. So,
And he the reason that he did not show up in uniform is because he made that personal decision that he was not going to wear that uniform again.
right.
And I really want to stress this for folks that maybe haven't been in the military or aren't familiar with it. We don't put the uniform on lightly, right? Like that, you do take an oath. It's the same oath that Congress takes. Um, People that wear the uniform believe in integrity and service before self and Air Force and excellence and all we do, right? Those are the core values. And they do believe that their job is to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And it's crucial to understand that that's where Major Watson was coming from here. He believes, as I do, as you do, right, that we do have a domestic enemy in the White House, that that person is not here to defend or support the Constitution. And if anything, they are anti-Constitution. Really, they would prefer all the power in this government be consolidated in the executive branch, and to have no other checks and balances on that power. And it is that level of seriousness of commitment that spurred this action. Oftentimes in the media, you get kind of a both sides approach. You have people saying, well, it couldn't possibly be that bad, right? Why, if it was that bad, somebody would be doing something. And I just want everyone to know that this is somebody doing something. And we can all do something. We can all take action in our capacities, not just in personal capacities, but in professional capacities, whatever those are. That is the goal, not simply to talk about the bravery and the courage of Major Watson, and he is brave and he does have courage, but to inspire that same bravery and courage in all of us in the work that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. This last one's really going to bring out the irony of their attempted charges of him. But I just to bring everybody up to speed, I see some new people have joined us, including some people that have interviewed Jason prior to that CNN interview and those pre-taped interviews that he did. And just to bring everybody up to speed, we've learned tonight from Jason's legal team, I have that he has been charged with 3 violations of the UCMJ. So far, we've discussed Article 88. Again, this is extremely rare. This has only been successfully prosecuted once before. He has been charged also with Article 92, which talks about partisan activities. Kira and I were just going through how we don't believe that anything that Jason did was partisan in the charging document. My particular show, Lights On with Jessica Denson, was named for that pre-recorded interview that he did with me prior to July 1st. And now I am about to read to you the final one, which is Article 133. This is conduct unbecoming of an officer. I think we should have a specific law for conduct unbecoming of a president, Kira. Maybe we could just write that into the Constitution right now.
I mean,
But
conduct unbecoming an officer, that applies to the president too. And I would say we have many, many examples
that's
that
true.
are
That's true. He's an
unacceptable,
officer.
right?
It's
Yeah.
unthinkable. Yeah, it's unthinkable. But they've charged him also with Article 133. And finally, for
Yeah.
everyone, I will read this page of the charging document, Specification 1. in that Major Jason P. Watson, U.S. Air Force and officer on active duty, did at or near the U.S. Capitol, Washington, D.C., on or about 1 July 2026, wrongfully and dishonorably, while wearing his Air Force service dress uniform and publicly identifying himself as an active duty Air Force major, deliver a public political speech advocating the impeachment, conviction, and removal of the president and vice president of the United States, and thereafter participate in a public political demonstration on the stage of the U.S. Capitol by displaying a sign stating impeach, convict, remove, and continuing the demonstration after United States Capitol Police directed him to cease, resulting in his arrest and a removal, which conduct was unbecoming of an officer, unbecoming an
Let me just
officer.
let me
Go
just
ahead.
say that's it's so frustrating to hear this particular charge laid out for obvious reasons, not simply the conduct unbecoming the office of the president, right? But because you want, as a leader, you want somebody who can discern between right and wrong and who can take action to say this is not acceptable. This is not a thing I am willing to tolerate. And if stating that this president is should be impeached, convicted, and removed in accordance with the Constitution as a political act. Well, you know what? So is not saying that. If you are not saying that right now, you are condoning the incredible excesses of abuses of power and overreach that this executive is participating in. If you are not willing to look at the actions of this administration and understand that they are not acceptable in a president
Yeah.
and they will not ever be acceptable in a president, and you just keep your mouth shut, well, not only are you a coward, but you are certainly making a statement about your politics.
Yeah, very, very well put, Kira. And I have some thoughts as that pertains to our members of Congress in a few minutes
Mm.
when we talk about what happened today. But let me just finish reading Specification 2. This is under 133 again. In that Major Jason P. Watson, U.S. Air Force, an officer on active duty, did within the continental U.S. on or about 17th of August 2026 wrongfully and dishonestly participate in a broadcast interview with the cable news network, CNN, during which he was identified to the audience as an active duty Air Force officer, renewed his public advocacy for the impeachment, conviction, and removal of the President of the United States, and referred to President Donald J. Trump as having, quote, failed us, or, quote, a failure as president, God forbid. my interjection. And as, quote, enraged in rampant corruption and is killing Americans, unquote, or words to that effect, which conduct was unbecoming of an officer. No, God forbid we call out a man who is drawing parallels to Nazi Germany in the 30s and the United States of America in 2026 through his actions, through his regime. God forbid we call out a lawless insurrectionist who is banned from the office he currently holds under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. God forbid we call out someone who is engaged in rampant corruption in violation of the Emoluments Clause from day one. God forbid we do all these unbecoming actions, Kira.
I know. Imagine how shameful that we're actually naming things that have already been reported in the press, right? This is just another example of of the I'm going to use the word again, cowardice that permeates this entire administration. They cannot handle being named for what they are. They will do all of the terrible things and assume that you will be too bound up in their own propriety to actually name the evils that are being perpetrated. And when you're not, they'll say, well, you are actually the problem here for identifying that there is a problem. But once again, I just have to stress that nobody is confused about who is taking the actions to undermine the United States. Nobody is confused about which leader is actually contributing to the loss of standing of America on the global stage, who is actually directing the paramilitary forces to go out and attack and yes, murder on camera in broad daylight Americans and the American people. The person committing crimes against the American people is not Major Watson. He is just identifying the perpetrator and identifying the constitutional solution. The constitutional remedy to an anti constitutional president is impeachment. And yes, it is conviction and removal.
Yeah, speaking of what you just mentioned, paramilitary force, I want to give a shout out to you, my friend, to you, because you were way ahead of the curve in identifying this ICE thug, police state as a paramilitary force over a year ago when you drafted your treason article at Citizens Impeachment. People started picking up on that language all over the place, and that language, that very language, paramilitary force, appears in Representative Green's articles of impeachment that he filed today, House
Absolutely.
Res 1486. That's
Yeah,
what
we
it
met with
is.
him. Yep, we met with him maybe a month ago. And I just to share for the audience, when we drafted that article of treason, the article of impeachment for treason, it was right after the Marines had been deployed to MacArthur Park in Los Angeles. And even the folks that I worked with said, "Well, do we really need to do this? Is it really necessary?" But as a veteran, I just have to stress that yes, it is. It is unbelievable that you are going to be deploying forces of any kind on American soil, whether that is the Marines, whether it's the National Guard. I'm here in DC now, the National Guard is everywhere. Or if these these
They're
mass
preparing for war in Washington, D.C.,
unidentified.
Kira, and they're preparing
Oh,
for war
you don't
there.
have to tell me twice.
Yeah.
There is certainly, in our opinion, there is a war going on against the American people and against the United States. The federal government is deploying forces of all kinds, to include these paramilitary forces, against against the American people and over the objections of the duly elected officials that are charged with the safety and security of American states and cities. There is a process in place for the people that are supposed to maintain order, and the federal government is refusing to acknowledge that. It is crucial that we have a Congress that is able to say, this is an overreach and an abuse of power. This is treason by the very definition established by the Constitution, levying war against these United States, tearing the Union apart. The federal government, when it attacks the individual states, attacks the union of states. It attacks the concepts of a union. When you politicize which states are engaged with as members of the union, you have a serious problem if you are going to consider yourself these United States. There is no way for the union to persist if the federal government is attacking certain of the states for political retribution.
Yeah, it's doing that, and of course, all of these gaming out thoughts of how is this administration gonna use quid pro quos to, you know, choose who which states will be rewarded, which states will not get aid when aid is needed. I mean, we are way past all of these thresholds, way, way, way past. And,
And if folks don't know, they're already doing it. That's why we're
yeah,
past it, right? They
yeah,
withheld funding for a water project in Colorado. Gary, Indiana hasn't
yes,
had electricity for I think 2 weeks now, and that is that there's no end in sight. I think the most
right.
recent update was that the power return changed from, Tuesday of this week to unknown because there's simply no federal emergency response.
Yeah, while the Trump administration, the illegal Trump regime profits and enriches itself to the tune of billions of dollars, while this illegal
Yeah,
war enriches the family of this criminal president. I mean, it is so sickening the way the American taxpayer is being robbed blind while the people are suffering, while the people can't afford their basic needs, while they're
yeah,
without power. It gets back to the absolute, onus that is on our members of Congress. They own every single
yeah.
iota of the suffering under this regime as far as I'm concerned. Every single bit of it until they do what Representative Green did today.
Absolutely. And, again, for the audience, if you're listening to Jessica, you know this, but every single member of Congress can raise impeachment articles as a question of privilege, and they can force a vote on those articles within 2 days. And we simply have not had enough people forcing the issue. Major Watson has forced the issue, and that is, we need more people to force the issue in Congress and otherwise. That is the only time we are able to start to build this power, when we are willing to say this is unacceptable. This is a crime against the United States and its people, and this is what I am willing to do to make sure that crime doesn't go unaccounted for. That there are consequences for it.
Yeah. Yeah, there have to be consequences, and if by not invoking impeachment, even if it's not believed to be politically viable or we don't have the votes, every time they don't even try, they are
Sure.
sanctioning these crimes. They are saying,
And this
yes,
is
you can commit them with impunity.
Yep. We've talked before about how the Supreme Court has kind of bowed out of this whole conversation. Supreme Court also supposed to be another co-equal branch of government, also supposed to be putting a check on the executive branch, but has absolutely failed to do so and is even aggressively pursuing gaining power for the executive. But even this Supreme Court, even this absolutely captured Supreme Court, whenever there is a decision, there is a dissent. You have to write the dissent. You have to put it into writing that this is not right and somebody knows about it. In this time, we are not confused. There is a whole body of people, and hopefully as we get more and more of these articles, going to be a body of literature that details the the failures of this president. I'll use that word very deliberately. Details the failures of this president in extreme detail so that nobody coming after us can think that we did not know what was going on. We may, we, the people in charge, may not have had the courage to actually pursue it, but those of us living through it know that this president is unfit and a failure and needs to be impeached, convicted, and removed.
Yeah, what I would like everybody to get on board with us, and I know Citizens Impeachment is doing this. I know our friends at Free Speech for People are doing this. A lot of our members in the Removal
Yep.
Coalition are on board. Over the next week, especially because Congress is coming back 1 week from today, their recess ends.
Yep.
And we are looking to get as much support as possible for HRES 1486 because we do know that Representative Green, unlike these other members, will force a vote. This is the message you
Mm-hmm.
need to convey. Like like Kira was saying, it's going to be on the record, the failures of the president. The other thing that's going to be on the record is these members of Congress betrayal of this country when it was literally falling. When American democracy was disappearing and it was crumbling to the ground or going up in flames, whatever metaphor you want to use, their betrayal will be marked by how they vote on these articles of impeachment. So
Absolutely.
convey that message to them. We have calls to action that are specifically meant to honor Major Watson's sacrifice at removetheregime.com. There is one or two
Yep.
links, I think, on the homepage that goes to citizens impeachment. I would
Yep.
add to them that right now in this window of time, those are specifically oriented towards getting other members of Congress. Because, like I said today with Rep. Green, this is abysmal that I continue to have to rely on one member of Congress to do this. But
Yep.
other members should be doing this before the midterms, before these midterms that Donald Trump has, from A to Z, told us how he's going to interfere with and rig. So we have to
Yep.
take action now, and we really have to shame these people, if nothing else, into doing the right thing.
And this is the moment, folks. I cannot stress that enough. Members of Congress do not care of anything except their next position. And I hate to be that cynical, but it is true. Representative Green has had more integrity than most, but every single member of Congress of the House is facing reelection. And what you need to do is you need to show up and you say you are going to lose your job if you do not take action to defend this democracy. Citizens impeachment/action. I think that is the link that's on
On
Remove the Regime. That will
removetheregime.com.
take
Yeah.
you directly to a new impeachment action focused on Rep. Green's articles, encouraging your representative, your specific rep, to co-sponsor those, to vote yes for them, to understand that this is the moment to stand up and that it will be remembered if they do not.
You want to hear some insane news that I heard before we started this live from a mutual friend of ours?
I don't know if I'm ready.
I know. And it actually goes right in line with one of the comments. It says Jeffries because he will bully anyone who tries, meaning anyone who tries
Mm.
impeachment. That
Oh,
this
man.
notion, last time Representative Green forced to vote leadership, Jeffries, they wrote this letter asking members to vote present. And 42
Yeah,
members
they
did.
did.
They voted present instead of voting to further articles of impeachment that were literally about the president of the United States threatening to execute them, members of Congress. So
Yep.
our friend believes that leadership may try to pressure members once again to completely vote down or vote present again because This is not in line with their articulated strategy, which is a non-strategy, which is, again, a complete abysmal betrayal of not even taking up impeachment if they do win back the House, or just launching endless, meaningless investigations.
Yeah, that I mean, this has been reported in the newspapers, right? Impeachment is
Right.
not a priority. It's not we're not ruling anything out, but we're not ruling anything in. There's absolutely no commitment to any of this. And I just say once again, that is not leadership. That is nothing resembling leadership. It's nothing resembling the leadership that Major Watson showed. It's nothing resembling the leadership that I personally have served under. Leadership is knowing what the right thing to do is and then pursuing it. And that is not what we have at this moment in time. It would not surprise me if these folks tried to impose their cowardice on the rest of Congress. And I'll say is that they lost a lot of ground. That first impeachment vote, they had 80 people voting for impeachment. The second one, they had 140, almost double,
Yeah.
plus these 47 that couldn't vote no because they were too afraid of what their electorate would do to them. Our job is to keep them afraid.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, I said what I said to our friend is, I mean, this would be political suicide for them to try to get Democratic members, literally Democratic members,
Mhm.
who are already, this country is already fed up with the spinelessness of the Democratic establishment. We've seen it all over the primaries. They're fed up with
Mhm.
this. So if they pressure their members now to stand down on impeachment before the midterms, that would be absolute political suicide.
Well, let me answer a question that just popped up in the chat. There's two actually. I'm gonna tag team. One is, don't you need to investigate then impeach? And to that, no, you do not.
No.
Impeachment is something that any member can do, and the entire House can vote on it with no inquiry required. And I will put a finer point on this: the impeachment inquiry that was conducted for the January 6th impeachment was made up because what leadership wanted to do was to get the entire country on the same page. So they bought themselves time and set up a
Failed.
information gathering
Yeah.
approach. We lost the momentum, the impeachment didn't go through, and we all know how that turned out. There is no inquiry required. And I say this as somebody who has spoken to the leadership offices. It is not required. All that's required is the political will. And the second question in here is, isn't it better to make him impotent than to impeach him again? And I simply ask all of you listening, does a Congress unwilling to assert itself, unwilling to pursue a constitutional remedy, have the strength of will to oppose an administration and render it impotent? They have confirmed
No.
nominees at the fastest rate in any of the last two administrations. They are cruising through the priorities of this administration because they do not oppose it. And it is, I say do not because they have not and they will not. And to Jessica's point, they make a they make a point of going to the media and saying they will not oppose this administration. They'll complain about it and they'll fundraise off it, but they're not going to oppose it.
Yeah, that part makes you really sick, doesn't it? Just
Mm,
the performative opposition that at the end of the day can make them a hell of a lot of money. This should make you absolutely sick. It is not any of our job to be cheering on any politician any day of the week unless they are upholding the highest commitment to their oath. Period. Full stop.
absolutely.
Yeah. And no, you don't need any investigation. Andrew Johnson was impeached on a napkin, an article of
Yep.
impeachment written on a napkin. That there is no procedure required. This mirrors a judicial process, but it is not required to follow a judicial process. There are no rules of evidence. There is none of that. It is purely political. And the remedy is political. The remedy is kicking this guy out of office. It's not putting him in jail. That's the next step, but we got to do
Yeah,
this one first. So, uh, so,
absolutely.
so anyway, Kira, I know it's really late for you. It's probably late for a lot of us, and it's been one hell of a day. But please, everybody, keep Major Watson in your hearts and your thoughts. And I know he is so grateful. Both of us have met him. We know that he is so grateful for the support out there for him. And
And the best way you can honor him is by taking action yourself.
100%. 100%. So please go to removetheregime.com, follow those calls to action, follow citizens impeachment specific action points right now. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kira, for joining me tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and thank you for following this story so closely and keeping it in the public eye. It's where it belongs.
Yeah, my pleasure. Lights on. Lights on. All right, everybody, good night.